Everyone. This is Wayne Callan for Attitude Magazine. Today's topic, Unleashing Your Teen's ADHD Superpowers, is the first in our ADHD Awareness Month webinars. I think it's a topic that gives all parents some hope. We all wonder if we can be doing more for our teens. Many moms and dads write in looking for ideas to get their teen motivated to do something with his or her life. We often hear, he just lays around or hangs out in his room. Many parents wonder how to get their teen engaged in something beyond games and their smartphone. Some parents say that they're frustrated because their teens tune them out when they suggest anything. They can't seem to nudge them along to do anything. Fortunately, we have with us today Stacy Turris. She has ADHD herself. She is the author of Here's to Not Catching Our Hair on Fire. It's a terrific book, by the way. Her Facebook page, ADHD, Tales of an Absent-Minded Superhero, is a must for those with ADHD. I've been visiting for years and love the content, so I highly recommend that. These days, Stacy spends a lot of time giving workshops and speaking about ADHD challenges and ADHD superpowers from an ADHD perspective. She's just starting, actually, teen workshops out in Long Beach, California. So this dovetails nicely with today's topic. A little housekeeping first. Stacy will give a presentation, and then she will take your questions. If you're new to our webinars, post your questions in the box at the right on your screen. That all being said, I'll turn it over to Stacy. Stacy, it's great to have you here today, and we're all ears.
Thanks, Wayne. Thank you guys for having me, and everybody, happy ADHD Awareness Month. Yay. I love that it's in October because it's like the only time we can celebrate the cobwebs in our corner, and it's ADHD Awareness Month. That's awesome. Okay, so get out your tangled up ADHD awareness ribbons, y'all, and let's jump into this. How to unleash your teen superpowers. Okay. There are many ways that we're going to go about unleashing our teen superpowers. But first of all, I have to figure out what I just did. What did I do, Wayne? See, this is how every single presentation starts out. If it didn't, I would be worried. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about neurodiversity, which I think is one of the coolest things that has come out in sort of neurology since I've been into this. So when I first was diagnosed when I was 33, I did not know. I thought I had all these crazy things going on with me. Did not realize that it was ADHD. Okay, started my ADHD page. I am so in tune with our tribe at this point. I've really come to realize that these things that they were saying were pathological or disorders. It was not making sense to me anymore because I saw that all of us had these incredible gifts. And when I say gifts, I truly mean gifts that complemented people that were neurotypical. And so then neurodiversity comes out, and it's a cool concept because it's just the variation and differences in the structure and function that exists in humans, but it's viewed as being normal and natural rather than pathological. So it's just a variation in how we function rather than like a mental disorder to be cured. And I think just looking at it that way changed my perspective so much. And an example is just like a species of monkey. One is brilliant at climbing, the other is brilliant at foraging. Because that monkey that climbs is a great climber, he's not smarter than the monkey that forages, right? They use different skill sets to achieve the same purpose. But when you bring those skill sets together, it beautifully complements each other. And if those two monkeys that are, you know, the tree climbing monkeys looking down on the foraging monkey, if they came together, it would just achieve these amazing results. And Tom Hartman has a really cool theory on sort of how this neurodiversity applies. I'm having, And it's the hunter versus farmer theory. And so the theory is that, like, as a society, we've gradually changed from the hunter-gatherers to more of a farming culture. But our tribe retains some of those older hunter characteristics. So with the farmer, they have to be able to till and sow and seed and water and nurture and weed. That is the purpose. That's how a farmer achieves results. The hunter has to be fast active. They have to think on their feet. They change direction, in tune with the vibe and the environment, etc. And so there are different, obviously, when it looks as a disorder, you can look at it as a disorder, or you can look at it from the variation of the human. So as a disorder, it's a short attention span. As a hunter, you're constantly monitoring your environment. The opposite of that is a farmer who is not easily distracted from his task. So the disorder would be our poor planning, our impulsivity. The hunter, if you look at it from that point of view, are able to throw themselves into chase on a moment's notice. But the opposite of that, the farmer, is able to sustain a steady, dependable effort for their results. The disorder view would be the daydreaming, but the hunter is bored by mundane tasks, and they enjoy excitement, and they love being hot on the trail, and that's when their brain's on fire and naturally focused, and that focus takes no effort whatsoever. But the farmer point of view, they are focused, they're good at their follow through, and they're good at tending to their details. Okay, so let's talk about the neurodiversity now of the teens and tweens, because then it gets even trickier. So it's obvious here by my own Facebook post, it's from over a year ago, that as my kids are wandering into these teen-tween years, I'm seriously sometimes at a loss. And their environment is so different than how we grew up with technology and social media. It's like we can't even apply our own experiences because we haven't had those experiences. So with these teens, it's easy to just say, you know what? Teens are straight up Martians. They're hormonal, they're irrational, they're moody, they're rude. I can't wait for this period of, development to be over. I just want to push it through. But what I've learned is actually we have to be really present and involved in their process in order for them to be productive in this process that is not just a result of them being jerks. It's the result of the physiology of their brain actually changing. So there's this book by Dr. Daniel Siegel. I love this book. It's amazing. I'm going to have to read it 500 times to really understand it. But it's called Brainstorm, the Power and Purpose of the Teenage Brain. And he basically says that the view that adolescence is something that we need to endure is limiting. It's limiting to the kids. It's limiting to us. These kids don't need to survive the teenage years. They are supposed to be thriving, and they can if we are involved and we are mindful, and they will thrive, not because of it, but not despite it, but because of it. So they're doing work. These behaviors that they're showing us, these reactions that they're having, they are doing work of adolescence. They are doing physiological, biological, emotional changes that are taking them through childhood to adulthood. And so this work includes like testing of the boundaries, the passion to explore things that are exciting and unknown. And these are the things that are setting the stage for the development of their core character traits that enable these kids to go on and lead great lives and have adventure and passion and purpose. And so he talks about that the brain changes during the early teen years set up basically 4 qualities. Whoops. Novelty seeking, social engagement, increased emotional intensity, oh my God, that's about to kill me, and creative exploration. But each of these changes have their ups and their downs. They do have their ups and their downs, but they're each necessary to create those important shifts that happen in our teens when they're thinking, feeling, interacting, and decision-making into adulthood and beyond. So with the novelty seeking, that comes from the teen brain's increased drive for rewards in the circuit of the teen brain. So teens actually have a lower dopamine baseline than adults do, but they have this immense, robust dopamine that just shoots up way higher than ours, which then, of course, drops a lot harder. So they're wanting to feel that dopamine, and they are having those reward circuit issues. So the upside is they're open to change. They're open to living passionately. And when they're open and when they're engaged with what's going on around them, they'll get sort of this fascination with life that we lose as adults because we think that we can't have it. But we can have it, and it's so necessary, and it's so necessary for our tribe as kids, as teens, as adults to keep this. So we get this fascination with life, and we get a drive to design new ways of doing things based on their experiences. So that novelty seeking is positive if it is directed in the upside. The downside, obviously, is sensation seeking and risk taking. And with these brains, with this reward center, the brain right now in the teenage brain is completely overemphasizing the thrill of something and completely downplaying the risk. So that's not them just being dumb. And I think about when I was a teenager, and I'm so glad that I know this now, because I thought I was a serious, like, what was wrong with me, the danger that I put myself in. And that's what it is. Our brain essentially tells us, or the teenage brain essentially tells us, these pros of this dopamine rush way outweigh the risk that, you know, probably could result in injury or death. And I also want to talk about, just while we're talking about dopamine, I would love to get into diet a lot more, but we're not going to have time. But I have to say that this dopamine is such a driving force that foods are completely impacting and affecting our kids, not only while their brains are developing, but their bodies, the way that their, you know, efficiency of how they're processing. So these processed foods, or these junk foods, or these simple carbs like, you know, white bread and sugar and white rice and potato, anything that leads to a rapid rise in their blood sugar also leads to a rapid rise in the dopamine. And they have, like I said, that robust dopamine release. Like, we would die for that. But with that lower dopamine baseline, the crash is so hard. And so then for them, the search for that new high is stronger. So it's not only in activities and behaviors, it's also in the food they eat. This food is completely addictive to them. It has absolutely no nutritional value for the brain. And it would really behoove everybody to sort of clean up the diet in a sense of clean eating. I'm not advocating anything except for going back to lean proteins, healthy fats, veggies, fruits, and grains. And it doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. And try it for a month and see how the changes, because I did the changes about 14 years ago, and it made the biggest difference in my daughter. Okay, so off of food, back to social engagement. So this is the time where we are so confused because they're pushing us away, and it feels weird, and it feels unnatural, and it feels like they don't need us and we don't like it. And the great thing with this social engagement, it's basically, the upside is they have this drive for social connection that leads to the creation of supportive relationships. And those are the best predictors of well-being, longevity, and happiness. When they are leaving us and gathering their peers, they are gathering people that are living in the same times, that they are going through the same issues, that they are understand. So we have to let them get their own support group going. At the same time, when teenagers push us away, our reaction sometimes as adults, especially with sometimes the behavior that kind of shows up, like moodiness and jerkiness and all that stuff, then we tend to push them away because because they're causing us grief. And so the bad thing is if teens aren't supported by adults and they're only supported by their peer groups and the other teens, that's when that leads to increased risky behavior with the teens. Increased emotional intensity. Okay, so I live life the same way. So I have to, sort of open my eyes to it. But the upside of this is when they're living life with this emotional intensity, my husband calls me constantly amazed girl, because literally everything is amazing to me and beautiful and wonderful and holy crap, how does that happen and how does that work? So life lived that way is filled with energy. There's a sense of vital drive. You're excited, you're passionate. The downside of that is we get intense emotions that are negative, and if we let them, they can rule our day, and that leads to being impulsive, being moody, having reactive behavior. So how do we promote the upside of the teen brain? This is the best way that I can see, and what I've been doing with my own teenagers is I actually just stopped managing a reggae band that I've managed for 5 years because my kids are in such a strange to me place that I was like, they need me like right there. And so it's made a huge difference where I'm not thinking about all these things and I'm really having to be present for them. And it takes a lot because obviously we have our own lives going on too, but oh my gosh, it's setting them up for such success when they are gone. And my daughter's 14, she's out of the house in 4 years, and I'm like, holy crap, I have a lot to teach her in 4 years. Like, besides laundry and cooking and all that, like, I need her to be mentally healthy and strong. So when this stuff comes at her, because with ADHD, let me tell you, it's harder, obviously, as you all know. Being a teen is hard. With ADHD, multiply it times billions. So I want them. They have to have this mental strength to be able to go out and face what they have to face. And they'll be strong enough to face it, and they'll overcome it. And then they'll go and reach for new challenges. And that's how you grow and evolve. But by being present, I don't mean even physically present. I don't mean like in their faces, asking questions, demanding answers, passing out punishments. I mean like being emotionally present. And when you're emotionally present, it just means you leave the door open unconditionally. They can walk in and out as they need you. They don't have to feel judged or misunderstood or afraid of your reaction, because a lot of times they don't want to come to us because they know we'll instantly react. And instead of reacting, we need to just, that's a recorder too. That's just like this instant reaction that just happens. We need to be present within ourselves to stop instantly reacting the way that we're reacting, and sit down in that space and figure it out. Like, really feel that space out with them. None of us know what we're doing. None of us. The kids think we know what we're doing. I have no idea what I'm doing. My mom finally told me she has no idea what she's doing. So I'm like, oh my God, nobody knows what we're doing. We're all acting like we do. And then we feel like crap that we don't. So we need to set them up for better success. Creative exploration. Their minds are, like I said, they're changing. They're making all these changes. Now they're at a point where they're creating a sort of expanded sense of consciousness. They're incorporating new conceptual thinking and abstract reasoning. And that allows them to question the status quo. And now they can approach problems with out-of-box strategies, which is what ADHD in general and teens are so freaking good about, is stepping out of the box. Being in the box is that is like a thumb being honest. So this allows them that sort of confidence to step out of the box and get to where their magic is. And it allows the creation of new ideas. And come on, you guys, the emergence of innovation. Who is going to be the innovators? Who will be the innovators? It will be our tribe, for sure. So the upside, if we promote the creative exploration, they'll evolve that into a strategy for living a fuller life. The downside is that, you know, when kids get too caught up in searching for the meaning of life during their teen years, like I did, it can sort of lead to an identity crisis and, you know, a lack of direction and all that good stuff. So you can see now how the physical changes in the teen brain, that is what contributes to their Martian status, right? But you can also see these are totally necessary and welcome changes to allow these kids to evolve from teen to adult successfully. And we just have to work as parents and caregivers to change our perspective on dealing with these guys. It's like we're like tour guides. If we're present during their journey, they might listen to what we offer, suggestions on different routes or different destinations or whatever. If we're present, your tour guide is there to guide you in directions when you want to be guided, right? So I'm feeling that with my daughter. I'm feeling that I'm, as opposed to a parent, and this is the last word and this is what I say, being sort of that tour guide. And I'm not saying you need to be a friend, you know, all that stuff. I'm saying be that tour guide, be that presence that they can float in and out of as they need you. And it's so funny because kids, there's this study where, remember, smoking in teens is down now, and it was going up and up and up, and they were doing all these gross commercials where they were showing like all these disgusting lungs, and, you know, and they thought that the scare factor would change the teens' minds and scare them into not smoking, and it did none of that. And it wasn't until they figured out that these guys actually are motivated more by when they started saying that big tobacco was tricking them and forcing them to pay money. That's when that was the motivation for them to stop, because it wasn't like someone's telling you what to do. It's like, hey, you know, these guys are like totally tricking you with these commercials, and check it out. And that's when smoking went down, because they respond to that. They respond to that as opposed to someone just telling them what to do. So, you know, with the teen brain, we just have to dig down. We have to look at the differences in processing and personalities that also affect the behaviors and the reactions. And the best way to unleash our teen superpowers is just understanding the way they think, the way they react, the things that motivate them, the things that shut them down. Because seriously, you guys, when we start seeing them, and I mean seeing them, we stop taking everything they do so personal. It is not about us, you guys. It's not about us. And that attitude that we and they have evolves from us against each other, the constant headbutting, the constant, and it evolves into an us against the world. It's not you guys against each other. It's you guys against the world. That's how it needs to be. And that's what being present and mindful will do, and that'll seriously change, you know, their entire life, truly. We all know about personality types. I think a lot of people don't really understand how those qualities can actually affect like behavior and reactions and quality of life. I have a lot of slides here about personalities. I'm not going to have time to go into all of them, but I know you guys have access to the slides, so you can focus on what you're interested in. But these are some of the ways, some of the things that can really affect your kids and how they think and process and react to things. Oh my gosh, I did it again. Okay, sorry. Okay, so this is just, it's the introvert extrovert. We all know about introvert and extrovert, right? We all know what we are, what we aren't. A lot of times people get confused because they're like, I have both qualities, or my teen has both qualities of an introvert and extrovert. The way that you know exactly what you are is one of two things. You either get energy from being alone, and that's an introvert. You get energy from being around other people, and that's an extrovert. And then the other qualities can overlap. But the thing about introverts that really people don't understand is that need to be alone. And the idea that they get drained by people. So if they're an introvert and they're at school and they're having to be on and on and on and on, and then they come home, they have literally expended all of their energy and given it to other people. When they come home and they go in their room and they close the door, they are recharging. They have completely different persona from their inner life and their outer life. And that's exactly what it is. So for me, people would never know I was an introvert because I'm so outgoing and happy-go-lucky and positive energy. But that expends all the energy, and I come home and then I have to like sit in a closet to recover from it. So introverts, they need privacy. I mean, I'm not going to read all these to you guys, but you have to understand how these things are so important to an introvert. And extroverts, it's the same thing. They require different needs too, but their needs are as necessary. They get energy for interaction. When your kid is like, I want to go be around a bunch of kids, I want to go be in this, you know, insane place where we all go crazy because they have all this energy, they love it. They feel energized. That gives them the energy to deal with their everyday life. They only have that single layered personality where they're on at home and they're on in public. And so we have to sort of understand that their needs are true valid needs, especially when it comes to this stuff. Auditory sequential versus visual spatial. I love this because this is so many of us. And it's, so the visual spatial, the teens and their rooms, right? That's like the biggest thing with the teens and their rooms. And I can't say anything because I was the exact same way. But if you're auditory sequential learner versus visual spatial, they are huge differences. And I totally don't understand even how schools can take all these different learning ways of processing and put everybody in the same classroom and teach the same way when you start breaking it down into how complicated our processing is depending on so many things. So anyway, there's a lot of differences here. Again, I'm not going to go over them because we don't have a lot of time, but know that you have to read this because it really is fascinating once you start getting down into it. Sensory processing disorder, a lot of people in our tribe have that. Teenagers, obviously everything is hyper everything. And so, you know, sensory processing disorder, for those of you that don't know, it's like our brains don't process that outside stimuli. So our brains don't have the ability to say, oh, that clock ticking is not a big deal. You don't have to pay attention to that. It's like, oh my God, the clock's ticking, the clock's ticking, the clock's ticking. So we're walking around in this whole, hey, 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 hey. So sensory processing disorder is a major thing that we have to deal with, and it is hard. And a lot of times we don't even know that we're dealing with it. We just know that we're agitated, overstimulated, frustrated. So there are symptoms that your teens will have, and it could be due to their sensory processing. And it's the, not liking to get touched. Hypersensitive to fabrics, not liking dirt on their hands, sensitive to odor, noises, hearing things that other people can't hear. That obviously plays a part in how a teen is going to behave and react. And so these are things that we need to start looking at and making their environment calmer and more cohesive to how they operate. And it's not catering to them, it's setting them up for success by letting them have a comfortable space to start off from. Empathic tendencies. Thankfully, this is becoming less and less woo-woo, and they're really understanding how energy works. And so there are those of us that can pick up on energy from a lot of other things. And energy contains information, and it contains information about emotions. It contains all information. And what we pick up on, the type of information we pick up on, depends on our body. But with these kids with these empathic tendencies are hypersensitive. And because, and the thing with our tribe, a lot of our tribe has empathic tendencies. I'd be surprised if there are some that don't. And so our tribe is considered moody. On top of the teenage brain, we're already considered a moody group because we are constantly reacting to the energy in our environment. It's not like our moods are changing. when we go into one space, we have to now readjust to all of the new information that's coming at us. And so we adjust and we react according to the environment. If the environment is negative and crappy and sad or angry, that's what those teens are going to feel. If the environment is calm or happy, or, you know, so it's a constant adjusting. No matter, you can go in a different room in your house and the energy changes. But then imagine going to school and all of these other kids that have the same stuff going on and this collective energy that's going on. It is insane and overwhelming. And it can really cause a person, an empathic person, to shut down. And when an empathic person does get overwhelmed, they do shut down. And a lot of times they feel like serial killers because they feel nothing and they think that can't be right. But it's not that at all. It's our brain's way of protecting us because we have reached maximum emotion in a healthy way. So that's protecting us. So it's not something that we want to discourage these kids from taking refuge however they can take it. And so again, you guys, we cannot take this personal. And it feels so personal. I know it feels so personal, but it's not. With teenagers are amazing, but then add ADHD and our superpowers. And if we can just direct them, you guys, just nudge them in these positive ways, all of these superpowers will show up organically. They're in there. They are in there. And it's always been a society of stamping them down. And it can't be that way anymore. We need these kids, you guys. You see what the world is like. I'm going to get emotional. I'm sorry. We have to set them up so that they can take this on and they can persevere and they can overcome these challenges. So that is why we have to do everything we can to promote them and their superpowers. And a study thing for teens, because this is something that'll really get them down, is the 3 Ps in our tribe. And it happens like with large, long-term project, where there's not like a deadline, or there can be, it doesn't really matter. But with our tribe and this perfectionism, where say they're writing a term paper, and the perfectionism requires them to start the very first sentence perfectly. And if they can't start that first sentence perfectly, they're going to procrastinate until they know they can get that first sentence perfectly. And they will procrastinate until it turns into this monster and they become paralyzed. So the 3 Ps: perfectionism, procrastination, paralysis. The way to help them combat that is with the 80-20 rule. This is a rule that has literally saved my life, because I was that person also doing the perfectionism thing. So they don't have to put that first sentence. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't even have to be a complete sentence. Give them permission to not be perfect and say, look, spend the first 20% of your time just outlining the first 80% of the project, right? 20% of your time just outlining the whole project, throwing down ideas, just getting yourself started. And then the last 80% of your time is when you go in and perfect that last 20% of the project. So you're leaving the perfectionism to the end instead of having it be in the beginning. And if it's at the end, that is so much easier to have information that's already set up and they can just take it from there. It's about balance. And with these teens and the overwhelm and pressures from sports and extracurricular activities and school and social media and everything that they're going through, they need to balance themselves out. And if they don't balance themselves out, they will go into the cave. And the cave is this place where you get when you're overwhelmed or you're overstimulated. Or in our tribe, not many people know this, but we really should sit down for an hour a day and just space out, because we're not really spacing out. Like, our brain is doing some serious work up there when we're just sitting there spacing out. And sometimes I will sit on the couch for an hour and just let it go. So that need to process information, those kids need that, but it can't be just them in their room on their electronics or whatever. They literally need to be doing nothing, or they're not processing. Another thing is if you just come off of like a big event or project or something that required all this energy, and then you have sort of that crash. Now, concerns about it are obviously people take it personal when you go into the cave. They think it's them. Again, this is what we have to tell. It's not about you. We have a tendency to feel numb or no emotion. And like I said, that makes us feel creepy because, oh my gosh, what's wrong with us? We think it might, we get it confused with depression. We know when we're in the cave, we don't have energy. We don't want to talk to anybody. We don't have anything to give. And so that is confused with depression. And of course, they feel like they'll never pop out of it. But the benefits of them caving is it forces them to recharge, and it forces them to process that information and just dump what is not necessary. And then when you're recharged, when they're recharged, it's like they're good as new. And just yesterday they could have been in the cave, and then this morning they wake up and they're like, oh, well, that was it. And you're always surprised that you're out of it. But these needs for these teens are non-negotiable, and it's the only way that they're going to create balance, and that we can help them create their balance. They have a deep need for acceptance. When they are going through this, they need to feel like they are accepted and loved, and not that they're just weird teenagers and we don't want to have anything to do with them. They do need their alone time, their processing time, their recharge time. They need stimulation. So if they're not reaching it out for it themselves, unless they're in a cave, but if they're looking for something, searching for something, they need something to keep them going, to keep them stimulated, something they're passionate in, and that will then get them into flow, because flow is the best feeling in the world, where you're so engaged with what you're doing, you lose all sense of time and space, and the focus, which is normally so painful and hard, is just organic and natural. And it's such a free feeling. They have to have that structure. They don't want structure, but they need structure. But the way that we do it is we create the structure that gives them enough space to bounce around in. They have to have that space to bounce around. That allows them their growth. That gives them their feeling of freedom. And they need things to be fair. They're never going to be okay with because I said so. When they're not balanced, unbalance is addiction, depression, anxiety, disease in your body, weight issues, whether it's gaining weight or losing weight or eating disorders, high risk behaviors, all of these things, searching for ways to either stimulate or self-medicate. And when they're looking for something to stimulate and self-medicate with, it's not going to be a good ending. So mindful ways to maintain balance. Don't shit on me and I won't shit on you. That's an agreement that you and your teen need to have. There's no you should. It's exploring everything together and being together, and not one against the other. It's you against the world. They need to release the expectations of everyone surrounding them, and you need to release your expectations of what you want them, expect them to be based on your experiences in life, because that's not fair. That is not fair. So they need to release, you need to release, and the self-expectations that don't jive with your natural constitution are the most important ones. The ones that you're doing it, but you don't even know why you're doing it. The other, tell them, laugh at yourself. This stuff is funny. I cannot explain to you the crap that I go through on a daily basis And I have to laugh at myself, which makes for a great Facebook page. I'm not going to lie. Like, it's all about, we can't take this too serious, you guys. I mean, we can't take it too serious. It is deeply painful, and I understand that. But at the same time, we don't always have to take it inside and beat ourselves up about everything. So, you know, tell your teens, do their best. Just forget the rest. Stop beating themselves up. My daughter is murdering herself over algebra. And I'm like, I don't even care about that side of the brain. Focus on you. I love to sing and dance, and she's the most artistic, creative, incredible. And I'm like, we're going to focus on that. Like, the math, it's necessary. We'll get you through it. But we're not going to put the energy of expectations into it. Let's focus on the stuff that you're awesome at. And that's making her feel so good about herself, because I'm not putting these weird expectations on her. And then we have to teach them to set themselves up for success by asking us for help. I still call my mom and say, I need help processing something, because, hey, we all know I have no executive function skills whatsoever. I'm not afraid to ask somebody, help me process this, help me make a list, help me come up with what is a priority, because my brain doesn't do it. And so, and it's okay. I don't care. Like, great. I'm glad my brain doesn't do that, because I think that sounds really boring anyway. But it's necessary. So I ask people for help, and they need to be comfortable in the fact that yeah, their brain might not do that, but it doesn't matter. It's neurodiversity, people. We are all made this way naturally. It is not a disorder. Please have them tirelessly explore their passions, because that is what's going to get them into that flow. And exploring passions, when we talk about exploring passions, it can't be putting all this pressure on ourselves to explore passions. Like, we can't be like, I'd really love to make candles. Oh, but then I need to start an Etsy store, and then I need to make money, and then I need to do it. It's like, no. Just have absolutely zero expectations. Explore what you're interested in. Keep your eyes open for unconsidered opportunities. I never thought I'd be a band manager in my whole life. It never even occurred to me. And it just happened the most random way, and it ended up being the biggest passion of my life. We don't have to dilute our focus with a billion things. We can focus on a passion, because we always think that we're going to miss the boat. We're not going to miss the boat. There's always going to be something else out there. So it's okay for you to just kind of roll around in what you're passionate about without going, oh, I'm going to miss this, I'm going to miss this. You're never going to miss it. Trust it. We are always going to have some kind of something to go for. And the other thing is, don't be afraid to move on when you're ready. If we have explored a passion and we're like, oh, all right, I kind of feel like I got a feel for that, and that actually gave me an idea to go check this out. It's okay. I have explored so many passions. I feel like I have this rounded view of everything because my parents did not force me to focus. It was always be passionate about. Be passionate, explore, be adventurous, and I was okay with that. So don't be afraid to move on, and don't let people say, oh, you never stick with anything and blah, blah, blah. And don't tell that to your kids, because why would you want them to stick with one thing anyway? Like, why does everybody have to be really awesome at one thing? Why can't we be passionately interested and educated in a bunch of stuff? Because that's what makes a well-rounded person. So it's okay to be a jack of all trades, master of none. I think it's a beautiful thing. Teens can totally be happy. They need to go into flow, connect or disconnect with people based on how they feel, but obviously not too long. They need to serve others. Our tribe, nothing brings us more happiness than serving others and making others happy. Make them volunteering a part of their structure, and it will do so much for them. Create comfortable structure, like a morning routine. My daughter and I now have a cup of tea in the morning, and it just connects us, and it takes 10 minutes, and it's not a big deal, and we're connected, and it's like, okay, we just grounded ourselves for the morning. Now let's face the world together. Moving our bodies, they have to be doing exercise, whether it's running or yoga or something to be stretching the creaks, getting the cobwebs out. I would love to tell you about meditation and deep breathing, how necessary it is. The great thing is, and you guys, with everything that's going on in the world and our empathic kids just not understanding, we have to give them tools to ground themselves, to get out of their heads, to bring themselves down to a comfortable space on earth. And meditation and deep breathing is an awesome way to do that. There are millions of apps. You don't have to commit yourself to one style of meditation. I do all of them depending on what I fancy that day. And it's the same with yoga. So unplug from social media and electronics. I force my kids to take a week detox because I swear their brains get completely frazzled by the time social media and everything. And it's like, okay, we're bringing them back down to space. We're bringing them down to earth. They're going to bitch about it for a minute, but then they're going to be happy because they're grounded and it feels good. Eat those healthy foods to feed your brains. No junk food, none of that stuff. It's not, and educate them. Don't be like, you can't eat this because it's junk. Explain to them what it does to their brain, what it does, and make them understand and be engaged with the processes of their body. And then they will have more of a connection to it than someone just telling them information that bounces off. Practicing that guilt-free alone time is so important for them. They need to be constantly checking in with their moods and emotions because they're constantly changing. So if they are constantly checking in, they can equalize as they go and sort of maintain, not steady, because it's never going to be steady as ADHD or as a teen, but it's more comfortable. We can we have to teach them to become introspective when they're feeling overwhelmed. Allow them to go inside themselves and recharge. And then there's geographical and environmental balancing, which I love, which is basically like going into nature, putting your feet into dirt does so much to ground you. Use those tools. We have nature around us. We can use water. If we want to go energize ourselves, we go by running water. If we want to feel the air, we go into the trees. If we want to feel grounded, we go to dirt or mountains or rocks. So those are physiological changes that do happen in our body, and we can use those tools, and it's easy to use them. And then the last thing is the mind mapping, which is such an awesome way for them to take all of those insane thoughts that are going into their heads and putting it on paper in a holistic view. Because if we write a to-do list, that is a complete linear view. And if you're looking at this mind map right now, most of you see everything this way, this big, huge picture. It's not a linear thing. So trying to sort of get that information from brain to paper in that linear list is hard for us. When we can put ourselves in the middle, create branches going out of all of these things, and then create our big picture, it allows it to get out of the brain. Now they see it. They don't have to carry it around with them. They don't have to take up all that space in their brain, which makes them moody and snappy and everything else because they're trying to process this. They can look at it and they can see what the problems are, and they have a tangible way of addressing them and taking care of them. And so it's an awesome way for all of us to sort of organize our brain so that we can interact with the organization as opposed to the way people think we should organize. So that is my Unleashing Your Teen's Superpowers, and I really hope that you guys learned a lot. I also want to do a shameless plug on my book. Here's to Not Catching Our Hair on Fire, which is I call it an accidental bestseller because I literally had no idea it'd be a bestseller. I just knew I had a bunch of stuff in my brain that I needed to get out, and people responded. So anyway, I appreciate Attitude, also have appreciated them since I've been diagnosed, probably saved my life on more than one occasion. So thank you guys for having me.
Stacy, that was terrific. Really terrific. I was saying, wow, wow, the whole time. But we have some questions. Let me try to throw a few of these past you. One mom asks, how can we help our daughter who views any help as an indication of her lack of ability? She has so many gifts, and it breaks our hearts that she can't access, see them, let others see them.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, there are so many answers to that question, but again, like I said, when I noticed when I was approaching it from a I want to help you standpoint, there is a I don't need help, I'm not broken. And it's like, I know you're not broken. I'm saying I want to help you sort of navigate through this. Well, I had to let her sort of start figuring the things. I couldn't force her to be in the space where she wanted to use her gifts. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
I can call the gifts to her attention, but we can't put them in a space where they start utilizing them. You have to have faith that if you're present with her and you're guiding her when she asks to be guided, and you're interested, that when the time comes for her to start touching those, she's going to do it. If you're doing what you can, she's going to do it. You don't have to push it forward. It'll happen totally organically.
Mm-hmm. I think this is a dad who's saying, how can I encourage my teen to try new things, to find his passion? I mean, do you have any suggestions?
That's a tough one. Yeah, that's a tough one, because I have a child that does not like to try new things. She actually would prefer if she didn't go anywhere cool. It doesn't matter even if we're going somewhere cool, she doesn't want to go. And so there is that, you know, that's actually like a low dopamine thing too, where they don't want to change and they don't want to try new things. And I actually have to force her out of the house sometimes to try new things. But if you're talking about like opening them up to experiences,
mm-hmm.
the way that I get my kids to do this is I create adventures where we go do experiences, right? That's like how because that's like, it's like what it was Plato that said, like, you learn more about a person in an hour of play than in a year of conversation. And so go play, whatever that is, go play. And it doesn't have to be something that's set up or something. It can just be organic. But when they're playing and their brain is not having to focus, when their brain is open and free when they're playing, they're gaining those new experiences. And those experiences that they're gaining without you having to push anything on them will allow them to create a desire for new experiences based on what they're learning. So it's a slow process, and we have to just ride the ride with them, guys. That's what it is. Every day, checking where we are with our kids, being open to them. When my energy is open to my teenager, she is so open to me. When I am closed down because I'm worrying about this and this and this and this and this, then she goes in her room. And it's a huge difference. So being present will allow him to create the desire for his own experiences.
Mm-hmm. Several parents have asked, my son loves, or daughter loves, crappy food. How do I help him or her eat better? I mean, you said the diet made a big difference with your daughter. So I was just wondering.
I mean, it's not just their brains. Like, there's so many things that are affecting the body. For example, like diet soda, I would not ever ingest ever, because of the things that it does to your pancreas. I mean, there's all of these different things, and we all know about the mind-gut connection. Your gut has to be healthy if your brain's going to have to be healthy. And that's why it's like these probiotics are so important for all of those bacteria, the levels to be, the good bacteria to be high, because then that allows our brain to work efficiently. If you're throwing all of that junk in your body, and the bad bacteria is overcoming the good bacteria, and you're all out of whack, your brain's out of whack. So it's not a matter of it has to be done. So the way that you do it, I don't know, because I am an all or nothing person. And it was literally one day I threw everything out. And this was when my kid was 2 and she stopped talking. They said the neurologist said she was in a chemically induced autistic state. She stopped talking after she went to the hospital, and nobody could tell me what was going on. She didn't talk for 2 months. I found multiple chemical sensitivity. It was nothing back then. I started doing all this research, took all the crap out, everything artificial in the food and the body products and the cleaning products. And that girl started talking a week later, and I've never looked back. And so I know when she gets around a chemical and she gets angry and agitated and her joints hurt, and it's like, this crap is doing this stuff to everybody. My kid can just feel it. You know what I'm saying? So it's a big deal. The diet is a big deal. Your gut health is a big deal. So however you have to do it, whether you incorporate cooking foods with them, and you're going to have to educate yourself too. I mean, it's not easy to eat healthy. It really isn't. But if you get down to the basics and just think about natural foods, and there's so many natural products where you're not putting at least, artificial ingredients. There are natural chips and all the stuff that they love. If they have to have their vice, which we all do, and we all deserve a little junk food occasionally, but it doesn't have to be the chemical junk food that is inducing these changes in the brain. And for example, so that's the junk food, but it's also hard with like the white foods, like the rice, the potatoes, all of the high glycemic index. And you can look up high glycemic index foods and you can see what you should stay away from and what you should stick with. And those are the things that are going to be affecting those dopamine levels. And it's just, if you're not maintaining those dopamine levels by the diet and you're having them get high and crash, high and crash, high and crash, nobody's having fun in that house. I can guarantee it. Nobody's having fun in that house. So whatever you need to do to make the changes, I know what I did, but you need to come up with a way that's going to work in your house so that it is a lifestyle change and not a temporary, self-improvement plan.
Right. One quick last question, and that is some ideas to help my team do nothing. You talked about sitting on the couch and allowing people to process their thoughts. Do you have any suggestions on that? I guess
how to help the team do nothing?
Yeah.
Oh, well, the way that I've had to actually do it with my kids, because it still requires electronics, of course, but I've been having them do guided meditations, which they love, because I make it like super cool, and we do the candles and they lay on the floor, and we just make it a cool sort of vibe where we all know that we're about to just kind of let go, and so they've gotten to the point where they look forward to it, and it's not me guiding them in it, and we change it all the time. So, and also listening to, oh my gosh, you guys have to check out throat music. I think it's called throat music. And it is this thing that sort of just gets right into your soul and like vibrates. And it's the most, our kids, our tribe will either love it or hate it, because it's going to be either stimulating in a good way or a bad way, but it'll definitely sit them down. So listen to that. It's on YouTube. And then, like I said, the meditation apps. Like, there are so many cool ways to meditate, and they have meditation for kids. Hold on, I have to see, because I actually have the meditation app for kids. It's called Breathe. It's just an app, and it's called Breathe. And it has all these different things that the kids can do for deep breathing. So it's just cool. There's a lot of cool things that you can do to sort of make them sit where they're still doing something. If I can sit on the couch and space out, I don't know if my kids can do that.
Well, have to be the last question. And that really was terrific. All I can say is, wow. Really great. I'm sure our attendees really appreciated it. I know I did.
I'm so glad. I wish I had so much more to say, but eventually we'll get it all out there.
That's great, and good luck with your teen workshops out there in Long Beach.
Thank you. I'll keep you guys posted. Hopefully we can get them going nationally, and then we can just, get everybody on the right track. So
right. So
thanks for having me, though.
yeah,
Wayne.
thanks for being here, Stacy.
Okay, happy ADHD Awareness Month, y'all.
And for everyone, I wanted to thank you for attending today's webinar. And please don't forget about our last Success at School webinar next week on October 12th. It's called Mindfulness Goes to School, How Meditation Helps Students with ADHD Thrive. It promises to be a good one for both parents and teachers. So please attend if you can. And see you then, and have a good day.